Adam, welcome back. Before we get to Apple, I am curious to know just generally your thoughts about the Twitter friction and whether or not the removal of some of that friction would allow him to focus more on Tesla.
Well, Carl, I can't really comment on that situation, but let's just say Elon Musk has a great opportunity with Tesla right now. They're still in pole position and really the only major auto company outside of China, at least, that can guarantee supply and the infrastructure necessary to make the sufficient quantities of the EVs that people need right now when the rest of the industry is struggling with that.
Yeah, you've said it's all about who can guarantee the supply. That said, what was up with that chart that you put out last week regarding Apple's balance sheet? Do you think that's a pool they could potentially dip into?
Oh, definitely, Carl. So the message from Eric Woodring and our Apple team is Apple's going to do a car, okay? And it's going to be a game changer. There's really three things I think for your audience to focus on here as to why. The first is the ecosystem, all right? We spend collectively about 600 billion hours inside cars globally, humanity. Apple doesn't really touch that. The second is the firepower. Again, 14, almost 15 times the amount of the buyback of Apple. Can you versus what Tesla spent? Can you imagine if they used even a portion of that into another vertical outside of rectangles into something like healthcare or transportation? We think it's going to happen. The team there thinks it's going to happen. And finally, just the upside. It's a $10 trillion mobility market. If Apple can capture even 5% of that at 2 times revenues, that could add 30 or 40% to Apple. So the message is Apple's going to do a car. It's going to take a while because they're going to go straight to autonomy. But finally, Tesla's going to get some real competition from someone that can transfer their skills and make a huge difference.
Adam, I wonder, though, is Apple going to do a car like they were going to do a TV? The longer this goes without Apple coming out with anything, the more I think they're talking themselves out of it, right? Because it's one thing if they got CarPlay software, they're like reinventing the dashboard, they're getting into other people's cars. It's another thing if they've actually got to manufacture vehicles on multiple continents, deal with the labor and union implications of that, the safety and regulation implications. If they do want to go straight to autonomy, gosh, how complicated is that? I mean, that could be a decade or more away.
John, we totally agree. Again, Eric Woodring and the team believe that it's straight to autonomy for Apple. Okay, this is one of the hardest problems humanity's ever tried to do in terms of the complexity of putting that kind of AI on public roads. So Apple, from a technological perspective, needs to curate, needs to get eyes on the car, maybe a 10 or 12 or who knows whatever passive optical system, working with other car companies that have their brand on the car, not Apple, expanding CarPlay into other parts of the car like they showed at their Worldwide Development Conference to train a neural network, and then allowing that regulatory environment to curate too. Both of those, we'd agree, are going to take more than 10 years. So the good news is it's a huge market opportunity for Apple and a challenge to Tesla. But the reality is we think the way Apple's going to do it, it's going to take a long time. No steering wheel on this car. That steering wheel is beneath Apple. So you got to get that out of your mind.
Too, right? No brake pedal. Is that right, Adam?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You got to imagine that the ADAS features we're going to have at the end of the decade are going to be so advanced. We're still going to have steering wheels in the vast majority of miles traveled.
Right.
You think if Apple's going to get into this, they don't want to make a car. They want to turn your car into a mobile app store. That's the prize.